That secret agreement specifically spelled out that only Bill Clinton and Bob Dole would debate, so Ross Perot was left out in the cold. 4 years later, in 2000, the Republican and Democratic candidates kept Pat Buchanan out of the debates too, although he had qualified for more than $12 million in public financing. Ralph Nader, who had made it onto the ballots in 43 states and the District of Columbia, was not only kept out of the debates, but was prevented from getting into a debate site, even though he showed up with a credential.
We all have the same so-called badge.
Yeah, and I was able
Everyone
to get
got in but me.
Wouldn't including not just Nader and Pat Buchanan, but the Libertarian candidate and other third parties that might arise, wouldn't that lead to a kind of chaos in our political system, to a kind of anarchy?
Well, that's what the Commission on Presidential Debates would like the American people to believe. They claim that hundreds of candidates run for office every year, and they're right, hundreds do run, like Billy Joe Clegg of the Clegg Won't Pull Your Leg Party, and Jeff Costa of the Crustacean Liberation Party, whose entire platform is committed to the liberation of crabs and lobsters from our nation's oceans and seas.
Farah says you don't have to open the doors to just anybody. There are ways to include viable, legitimate third-party candidates, and democracy is served when we do.
Third-party candidates don't regularly win federal elections. They don't. But they raise critical issues that the major parties eventually co-opt. The third parties are responsible for the abolition of slavery, women's suffrage, public power, public education, Social Security, unemployment compensation, the direct election of senators, the formation of labor unions, the list goes on and on. And these candidates, before presidential debates were ever established, raised these issues in public forums. Millions of Americans listened to their ideas, read about them in newspapers, heard about them on the radio, and it forced the Republican Democratic parties to co-opt these issues and integrate them into law. Now, the American people never get to hear about an issue, and the third-party candidate cannot break the bipartisan conspiracy of silence on critical issues that the American people care about.
That happened when Ross Perot was excluded from the '96 presidential debates, but he had the money to fight back with ads of his own.
76% of Americans want Ross Perot in tonight's presidential debates. The Republicans and Democrats are desperate to keep Ross out. But why? Maybe it's because the 11 big companies that fund the debate commission pumped millions into forcing NAFTA through Congress and are giving millions more to the Democrats and Republicans. That trade deal has cost more than 500,000 American jobs.
In the first 3 debates in 2000, you never heard the word corporation mentioned.
Never, not once.
There was no reference to the World Trade Organization, to free trade, or to labor.
When you have two parties who receive 80% of their contributions from business interest, excluding other voices who are critical of corporate power, and excluding moderators and panelists who might question them sharply on their relationship with corporate power, you end up with a presidential debate that entirely excludes possibly the most important, or one of the most important issues confronting the American people. That is growing corporate power and how it undermines our democratic process and economic system.
You have a chart in your book on page 13. I suspect that most of my viewers and most of the people who will be watching the debates in a couple of weeks don't know this, that the national sponsors of the Commission on Presidential Debates include 1992 AT&T, Atlantic Richfield, Dun & Bradstreet, Ford Motor Company, Hallmark, IBM, J.P. Morgan, Philip Morris, Prudential, 1996 Anheuser-Busch, Dun & Bradstreet, Lucent Technologies, Philip Morris, Sara Lee, Sprint, 2000, Anheuser-Busch, U.S. Airways, 3Com. You say that this results in the debates becoming corporate carnivals.
Yes. If you attend a debate site, what you see are huge Anheuser-Busch tents, Anheuser-Busch girls in skimpy outfits, and they're passing out beer. They're passing out pamphlets that denounce beer taxes. You have giant posters of the various corporate sponsors also passing out other materials that are promoting their goods, their products, and their political issues.
The public at home never sees this.
Oh, they never see this. They never see this. These are the corporations that are primarily paying for the debates that tens of millions of Americans are watching. And they get to bring their clients to debate sites, entertain them. They bring them to a nice suite, and they take them to the debates and sit in the front rows of these presidential debate forums. They get tax deductions for their major contributions to the Commission on Presidential Debates. And when I asked Frank Fahrenkopf, co-chair of the Commission on Presidential Debates, whether he thought it was okay for beer and tobacco companies to be hosting and sponsoring these presidential debates, he said, "Boy, you are talking to the wrong guy. I'm a lobbyist for the gambling industry."
George Farah says there is an alternative to partisan control of debates sponsored by corporations and run by lobbyists, a citizens' debate commission. He spells it all out in the book, and a lot of people have already signed on. Why do you care about this so much?
Because this is a democracy, and we have to fight on behalf of our democratic process. Our democratic process is at stake. Your viewers have power. These are political candidates that are fighting desperately for their votes. They can demand of these candidates that they want real debates. This is the most important country in the world, and we need to have an authentic debate so the American people can choose the most powerful human being in the world.
You can find out a lot more about George Farah and open debates by going to the Now page at pbs.org.